Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, where it is a Breeders' Cup special. That's right. The biggest event that is going to happen all week in the US takes place this weekend because it's the Breeders' Cup. Maybe the second biggest, kind of. I don't know. But we're really looking forward to all the action at Keeneland. We're doing this on Friday afternoon UK time. So that means shelf life-wise, we're just going to target Saturday, and there's 9 grade 1 contests as far as Saturday go, a mixture of racing on the turf and the dirt, 5 on the dirt and 4 on the turf. Time to introduce a stellar group of guests. First of all, Michelle Yu, who is up at silly o'clock with a fine background there. Michelle, how different is a Keeneland Breeders' Cup to where you are, a West Coast Breeders' Cup?
Well, it's definitely different because, first of all, the area around it. I mean, obviously, everyone lives and breeds horses there. So last time they had Breeders' Cup at Keeneland, it was just an amazing atmosphere the entire week. Obviously, the venue itself is a lot more intimate, but this year without fans, it's going to feel weird no matter where it was at. But, you know, you never doubt really what the weather, anything like that's going to be like at Santa Anita. And there's always that inkling of what might happen when you're at Keeneland. So there's that little hint of uncertainty. But overall, I thought Keeneland was an amazing host last time. It's going to be a great, great, great rendition this year.
Yeah, that's right. The only fans that are going to be at Keeneland are the big ass fans, and they are big, let me tell you. Mr. Peter Thomas Fornatale, or Pete to his pals. I got that right. You are at base camp. You are at Keeneland. What's going on for you stateside these next couple of days?
I'll be out there. I'm one of the lucky ones, you know, without fans in attendance. There's going to be just a bunch of people associated with the horses. It's going to be much more of an industry thing, which, of course, isn't what the Breeders' Cup's all about. It's all about bringing the best of racing to the real fans, the horse players, not just the industry types. But the good news is it's my job in part to try to bring the event to people. A lot of cool stuff going on at breederscup.com, different ways of you can virtually be in the paddock and follow your horse from the moment they get to the paddock out right to the gate. So the good news is you can be closer to the action than ever before. But yeah, of course, it is definitely a hole in the event without all the great racing fans here.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is something we're getting used to all over the world. But there we are. At least we're racing. Declan Rix of attheraces.com joins us. The last time I was speaking to Declan, it was about national hunt horses in the UK, and here we are focusing on international challenges out at the Breeders' Cup. We're a bit light on the ground, aren't we, Rixie, as far as the Euro challenges go at this year's Breeders' Cup?
Yeah, a little bit, I suppose. Maybe in certain races we're quite strong, the usual races, but maybe overall a little bit light. But yeah, look, I'm looking forward to it all. It's going to be a spectacular 2 days. It always is, and looking forward to watching the American coverage. You know, we don't do it like them over here, do they? It's so positive over here. We're miserable, so it's a nice change.
It's a weather thing. It's definitely a weather thing. Listen, before we get stuck into the races, I think there's 2 important things we should cover, and then we're going to get into those races and hopefully give you horses for each one, or if we don't have a strong opinion, we'll just move on. But first things first, what turf conditions, Michelle, are you working off? What are you expecting underfoot conditions to be like turf-wise, first of all?
Firm. I'm going off firm, but Keeneland firm is just a hair below like US standard, I would say. A lot of our turf courses out here are bone rattling, and Keeneland just naturally is a little bit more European. It has a loamy base to it, so it always has a touch more give. It's been pretty chilly out there, so obviously it's been a little freezy in the mornings, which can lead to like a crust on the top. I expect it to be beautiful. The weather looks like it's going to be phenomenal that day, so it should warm up, but I don't think that there's going to be an excuse. Sometimes I feel like the Euros can have an excuse if we're in California with how rock hard our turf course is out here. And being at Keeneland, they shouldn't say, "Oh, it was too tough for us." There's no way. It's going to be perfect.
And as far as the dirt goes, the Keeneland dirt, Pete, in comparison to other areas of the US, are there specific types of horses you look at that tend to suit the Keeneland surface?
I'm definitely a big believer in horses for courses generally. I always like it when they have a run, but I haven't noticed any real particular tendency when it comes to the dirt. I would say in terms of the way the dirt course is playing, it's followed the trend of American racing over the last few years, which I would say, speed is always going to be your friend on the dirt. The rail a lot of days isn't exactly where you want to be. So that forward trip, 2 to 4 wide, on the lead. I'll give horses extra credit who I think are going to end up in that spot, but that can also be hitting a bit of a moving target. We haven't had racing here in several days. Going to be watching very closely in the undercard races today and the Friday before we make any conclusions about how that dirt track is playing. But that's sort of my assumption going in. It'll be quickly changed if we see horses going right to the rail and overperforming.
Great stuff. Rix, are you ready for all your mile and 16ths, mile and 8s, all of those comments coming your way? You happy with all of those?
I'm ready for my stretch run, yes.
I love it. Right, let's move on to the first race. Obviously, Declan, you and I are just going to watch on in awe as our two American experts discuss this Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Grade 1 contest, and you get stuck straight in, Michelle, if you can. Who is jumping off the page at you in this and why?
So I think this is going to be an absolute throwdown of a race. They are going to go wicked fast. I have to say, I love Serengeti Empress in here. She is going to be the speed of the speed. Now, her trainer, Tom Amos, not thrilled with her draw because she's a little bit to the outside. And normally you would say, that's great because she's just going to clear and go over to the rail. Unfortunately, there's other fillies that want the front down along the inside, and that's going to force their hand, I feel like, to go. A horse like Gamine, if she had been outside, probably would have been able to sit off Serengeti Empress. But in this case, she's not going to. This race is really going to hurt Venetian Harbor, even though her connections have been really thrilled to be coming here because she wants the lead. She is determined to be on it. Unfortunately, she's about a second and a half too slow. Serengeti Empress is the fastest horse in the field, bar none. She can go up, she can put up 43 and change fractions and hold on for the finish. So I like Serengeti Empress in this because she is the fastest horse. She is the grittiest horse. She has the biggest heart. The only drawback for me is no filly has ever won this race gate to wire.
So that could be a spanner in the works for her. Serengeti Empress about 4.0 as far as the matchbook exchange goes. So 4.0. Gamine is fairly short towards the top of the betting, round about the 2.4 mark. So she heads the betting currently. That's one of the things, Pete, that I love when studying American racing, and since I've been out in Dubai and studying the dirt action out there, is how much it's so important to get to measure those early speeds. In the UK on the turf, we so often focus on finishing speeds, but it's those early speeds which are so important on the dirt, right?
No doubt about it. Dirt racing far more attritional, turf racing far more tactical. That's the case here, and it's even more the case there. And I think Michelle did a really good job setting up what that pace is going to look like. And especially since this is the Matchbook podcast, we could talk about what I think might be the value play of this race. And that's taking on Gamine and looking to lay that short number. Because I agree with Michelle completely about Serengeti Empress being the one who's going to win that pace battle. Gamine's got to go. She could end up on a rail, like I said, that I don't think is necessarily going to be where you want to be. So the advised bet I've made in this race was on Speech, who was available at prices of 20-1 over there last week. That's just too big. I don't love the rail draw for her. I think she'll get a great run through if she can overcome that draw. But at the prices and the opportunities I'm seeing on Matchbook, lay Gamine and go on with life.
Yeah, the trip can totally set up for Speech in here too. Like you said, it's going to be a perfect setup. There's going to be blistering speed, and she's coming out of longer races, cutting back. I love a horse on a turn back in distance. It just gives them that little bit of extra umph. Don't think that we're ignoring Belle's the One in here because she narrowly beat Serengeti Empress in the Derby City Distaff. But we have to remember the stretch at Churchill Downs is over 1,200 feet. The stretch at Keeneland, about 1,100. So she got up by this much, and Serengeti Empress was there a step after the wire, and she galloped out in front. So I think it was just a super lucky bob and one of the longest stretches in America for Belle's the One. I don't think she's catching Serengeti Empress. This is a filly that doesn't come back. You have to catch her and her speed.
And as Pete says, with the Matchbook Betting podcast and on matchbook.com, if you don't want to be with a horse at the top, you can just hit that pink button and you can just bet against Gamine if you want to do that. Speech currently around about 17.0 if you want to take that option. And just on how Javier Castellano rides Speech, is he, given that rail draw, is he going to have to be looking for every possible chance he can to just edge off that rail and challenge wide in the straight? Is that what he's going to be doing throughout the race?
That's the way that I would like to see it. Maybe try to get a little bit of position going forward to not get completely buried, get off the rail, settle, let them go hammer and tongs out at the front, and then make a wide run into the stretch and hopefully pass some tired rivals.
Okay, so Speech and Against Gabin for Pete, and mainly Serengeti Empress for Michelle in the opener. That's it, rattling through. I like it. Let's move on to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. 5.5 on the turf for this. I was hoping to come to Rixie, but we just don't have a really good turnout as far as the Euros go. I'll get a line from Rixie shortly. The other thing that Glass Slippers, who does line up, is not going to be used to doing is running in a sprint and going round a corner. So that's going to take a little bit of getting used to. Pete, where are you looking? It's quite an open field as it stands currently. Lengths around about 6.0 and then bigger from there.
I'm interested in Got Stormy. I think it might be as simple as she's got the most class and the best figures. Horses turning back from a mile have a good record in this race. Granted, usually the 6.5 at Santa Anita is where that happens, a configuration that really plays to that turn back from a mile. However, we know in the case of Got Stormy, she's got that course and distance form. I think she should be able to get a pretty clean and good run through there. I respect Imprimis, her chief market rival, a lot. I'm not super clever in here. I expect one of those two best horses to get the job done.
I love it, Michelle. I love it. Thumbs down. Thumbs down. We don't just want agreement on the Matchbook pod.
No, goodness. I like Leinster in here. He's a horse for course, which is Pete's own betting angle. He doesn't throw him in. He brings in back-to-back wins right here at Keeneland. So I like him in here. I can guarantee you that Big Runner is going to be turning for home in front. His workouts have been amazing. You can watch them at XBTV. I mean, he's not being asked a drop going 58 and change at Santa Anita, and that is no easy task. The Baffords are going 59 a minute and 1, and this horse is cruising in 58. He looks so stinking good. He's got the shortest way around there. I like him a lot. And your price play, no doubt at all, is the forefront Run the Fed for Chad Brown at 12-1, people. His turf sprint race where he ran second to Empress, it was a terrible trip. If you go back and watch the race, it was just not easy for him, and he still sustained, I think, second up the break for him. If he's anywhere near that price, he's an absolute play for me.
You can get 15.0 with Front Run the Fed. Tell me Front Run the Fed is a front runner, or he should just be scratched. He shouldn't be allowed to line up.
You shouldn't have to play to your name, right?
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe it's clever. He's getting in the minds of the other horses. They're like, he's going to go forward.
Right. By the way, I just want to mention too that Keeneland has been putting out like a detailed map, pretty much like a topography of their turf course, telling you not only how firm or not firm it is, but the amount of water that's on it. And they've also been measuring the depth of the turf course all the way around. So some of your guys that really like numbers and want to get into that can always look towards that. It's something new this year for Breeders' Cup.
They are using Rixie. They're using going sticks, taking a leaf out the European books. I think it's the second year running that going sticks have been used on the turf. I think that's right. Anyway, so you can get a detailed sort of topography, as Michelle says, as to where it might just be a little bit looser or a little bit wetter, but we're working on being pretty firm. So rather than just moving on, because I want to get this right, Got Stormy, Pete, you're most interested in?
I like Got Stormy. Michelle brought something up that made me want to ask you a question. Is there in-play betting on Matchbook for this race? Because that Big Runner information could be amazing for those looking to back to lay, if that's a possibility.
Yeah. You can bet in running with Matchbook, so you can look to do that. If you think a horse is going to trade at a different price in the run that you can play to your strengths, then you can get on and do that. What's the angle there, Pete?
Well, I mean, already just looking at the pace figures I'm seeing, I was imagining Big Runner would be the speed of the speed and be the one who would be out there. So if he's training well, I think you're going to have some point during the race where he's trading lower than whatever he's probably is right now, 13.0 or so, I'm guessing. So, try to get in at 13, get out at 6, and have everything look pretty and green in your book.
Yeah, and then whatever the result, you just smug. That's the best way to do it.
Exactly. Then you throw up your hands.
Michelle, Front Run the Fed for you, as I say, a bigger price than even you said with Matchbook 15.0. Who was the other? There was another horse you described as stinking fast. Who was it?
Big Runner and Leinster.
Would you be looking to have all of those on side?
Yeah, I mean, I want to watch the races before I like make my firm decision on who I really like. But like I said, Big Runner is going to be the pace, but Leinster's the horse for course. And the only reason I would play, I'm not in love with Front Run the Fed, but his connections are too good to pass up. And if you can draw a line through his last beat where he probably should have won, and he's 12-1 or higher. I mean, if you can get any kind of price on him, to me, he's just a play across the board. I don't know if I would tangle him in my exotics at all, but just like a saver bet.
Big Runner 15.0, and Leinster, as I said, is the one that currently is around about the top of the betting, 6.0 under Luis Saez. Right, we move on to the 6:18. Now, these are, of course, the GMT times that we're giving you, it being a predominantly UK and Ireland podcast. This is the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Which of you two American experts wants to kick off here? Pete, you look ready to go.
I'm ready to go, and I'm ready for Michelle to give me another thumbs down here. I like Nick's Go in this spot. I feel like this course configuration is going to really play to his strengths. He's been a new horse since the transfer to the Brad Cox barn, and I think he's clearly the best speed. You've got a short run to the first turn, and you've got a short stretch in the mile when it's run here. I'm not sure that anybody's going to be fast enough to put enough pressure on him. I know he ran a very fast race a few days ago. Some might be concerned about a little bit of regression to the mean from that. But in the Brad Cox barn, I've seen them find new levels of form and just continue to go on with it. I think that's the case here with Nick's Go. I also respect complexity tremendously based on what he's accomplished on the racetrack. And I think he's got the position to be the main threat. The only wager I've made so far in this race is on Nick's Go. And I'd be happy to end up with positions of 2 against the field potentially in here.
Bounce, come on, bounce. I mean, geez, Pete. We should get a running tally of how many thumbs downs. You and JK did a head-to-head the other day. I feel like you and I should really do a head-to-head for Saturday.
We agree JK and I agree too much. That's the problem with our head-to-head. But yeah. I want to hear look, do you not agree with what I said though about the theory of the bounce? I know it's not as prevalent in the UK, but in Ireland, but there certainly are. I'm assuming you know what we're talking about when we're debating it. To me, very often, the specifics really matter in terms of who the conditioner is, and I feel like some horses are just far more likely to react to huge efforts than others. And for me, Michelle, that's really why I'm not too worried about it in the case of Nick's Go. I expect him to run his race under conditions that should be favorable.
I mean, I get where you're coming from. Anytime the Brad Cox barn is on point, I feel like, you're fine. But I think that he's just super beatable in here, as is Complexity, who has been training great, but they're not running this race around 1 turn, are they?
They are not.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, chuck him out. I mean, Complexity's best races are always around 1 turn. Like on paper, you're like, oh, this race. He's a dirt mile freak around 1 turn. There's this race being around 2 turns. I feel like it lays itself to a completely different pace scenario. It's an extremely short run into the first turn. So I do like where you're going with Nick's Go, because he'll go to the front and then he'll get the shortest way around there. But he might be sitting off of Art Collector, who draws along the rail and just, BJ Hernandez knows how to ride that course just for right there when they make that turn. I feel like Art Collector is just going to shoot up in there, and he's going to maintain an advantage, at least for that spot, which means Nick's Go is then going to have to use horse to pass and clear. So, I mean, he's going to have to be so head and shoulders above even where he was in that last race. It's crazy. I like War of Will in here. He's a classic winner on the main track. He's a grade 1 winner on turf going a mile. He has been an absolute nutter to watch in the mornings. A lot of times he comes in dripping in sweat. He's not focused. He's fighting his rider. He's just messing around the whole time. His last 2 works, holy cannoli, all of a sudden it's like he got gelded, except that he didn't. He has been focused. He's like, I'm doing my job. Think about how good War of Will has been as an absolute head case, and then you focus him. I feel like this is a great spot for him, because I don't think he wants to run the classic distance. He's obviously not the best, sprinter. I love the fact that he has this dirt mile option around 2 turns. So I like War of Will at 10-1 in this race.
Yeah, War of Will, who was the same price to what we've got here in the classic last year. So you can get him at 21.0. I'm going to get that right. 21.0. You can get War of Will here. So I mean, that seems a fair price based upon what Michelle was saying. I was going to confirm for any podcast listeners who aren't watching that Michelle was doing her thumbs down, but then she basically said what she said, and I think it was pretty obvious that it was a thumbs down. So that's fair enough. But
I need a running tally of thumbs right here. We need a graphics guy.
I just want to pick up on one, because when I looked at the map at Keeneland, and I want to make sure this is right. The into the first turn, it's almost nothing, isn't it? It looks from the map that they almost start on the turn, but they're a bit back of that, are they?
So technically the race does start there. They're going to do a run up. I think the run up makes it about 1 mile and 70 yards, which again will play to War of Will, and maybe not some of these horses that are a little bit more distance limited, because 70 yards is a serious amount. When we talk about horse racing, and it can come down to a nose on the wire, that's a significant amount of difference. And if you go back and watch Breeders' Cup here last time it was here, and even some of the other races, you can see just how much farther back, but it is still a really short run into the first turn.
Now a horse like Complexity, who's drawn 10, how much of a negative is that with the early part of the race? How much extra ground he's going to be covering if he's wide into the first turn? Is that a real negative, or not necessarily, based upon what was Pete saying about where you might want to finish on the track?
For me, he's got enough speed to navigate that, especially if the rail isn't where you want to be. We'll know a lot more by tomorrow when we get to see some dirt races today and get some assessment. I mean, if it's a good rail, that spot gets pretty darn tricky. If it's the track I'm expecting, I think he's got the positional speed to navigate it. It's not like a huge positive, but then again, he does also get to evaluate the pace in front of him a little bit more. I think it's a net neutral at the end of the day, unless the track is playing differently than what I'm guessing it's going to.
The thing is, with him being drawn all the way to the outside and he does have a good turn of foot early, but the whole difference is now his best case scenario is to be like 3 or 4 wide with all of the speed to his inside, right? Whereas normally if you were braking and going down the backside like he does at Belmont around his big 1-turn mile, and you have that whole backside to find yourself a good spot, you move over, you get to where you need to be. And in this spot, going right into that turn, even if he's going as fast as he can, he might still be 4 wide.
Michelle has some of the best behaved kids going. They're unbelievably well behaved. They're just chilling. I love it.
Go.
But anyone that's listening on the podcast, so Michelle's up at 5:30 to do this before taking them to school, and they're just behaving. I love it. That is superb. One other thing on the bounce that you said. Are you talking about bounce off a big performance off the back of the absence that he's had, or is it just the fact that it came on the dirt? I mean, we out in Dubai talk about a bounce off a big performance on the dirt in particular because of how much it can take out of them, or is it both those factors, the big performance on the dirt and off the back of an absence?
I just have it strictly off the back of an absence.
Okay. Same, Pete?
I mean, again, I'm not as big of a believer in the theory. Certainly, if a horse was coming straight off a long layoff and ran a giant career top, I'd be a little bit more worried about it. But I feel like where this horse is in his form cycle, and more importantly, the hands that he's in, that I don't think it's going to be a terrible problem for him. We shall see Saturday afternoon.
We shall. So, to confirm, Nick's go for Pete there, and War of Will at a fair old price, the main one for Michelle.
I'm going to give you a nice cold exacta here. It's going to be War of Will over Shark Samurai.
War of Will
over Art Collector, over Complexity.
That's just the 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how Michelle sees it shaping up. But War of Will, the main one at the price to win, 21.0. Declan Rix, it's your turn to shine as we tackle some European runners and move on to the next contest, the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf.
He's asleep. We've been talking too much.
I feel like I need to get in here and break up this American Civil War we've got going on.
It's probably a fair representation of what might be happening over there soon. Given what's going on. Go on, Rixie. Look, my personal opinion is that I'm sad enough to say I don't think the Europeans are going to come out on top in this race anyway. But if you can analyse for us the main contenders and who made most appeal to you out of the likes of Peaceful, Terabellum, who's finally back on her preferred surface or quicker surface, KM Pepper, etc. Take it away.
Yeah, look, I think this might be a decent race for the Euros, to be honest. I think we have sent better fillies out here in terms of kind of peak figures and numbers and what have you, but I do think Terabellum is definitely one horse who's going to like getting back on this quicker ground. She is a Euro horse who probably wants, she'd be fine on Santa Anita kind of firm ground. So I think the test is going to suit her well. The only thing I would say with her is here in Europe, we've like John Gosden's had a little bit of a disappointing couple of weeks here. Enable was pretty poor in the Arc, and then he had a very, very bad British Champions Day as well. So I'm going to give her the swerve, but I couldn't put you off massively on her. But I do like Peaceful in here. I think this race is going to work out well for Peaceful. Just looking at the pace, I think you've got Peaceful, Mean Mary, Rushing Fall, Terabellum can be up there, Mucho Unusual, KM Pepper, all those horses like to be on or just off the speed. So she could get a good gallop to run at here. And I've just the way she's been running in Europe this year. She's been breaking the gates well. She's been traveling well, but she's never kind of got that end-to-end gallop that I think will show her to her best. And I think she might just get that here. And then when you factor that in with a good lead and a bit of cover, I think this is going to suit her well. She won the Irish 1000 Guineas, so she's a classic winner on pretty quick ground. So I don't see the conditions out there being any problem for her. She's a fresh filly as well. She came back, made a beautiful start to her autumn campaign in the Matron Stakes. Then the ground is far too soft for in the Sun Chariot. So I'm sure a lot of people in the US might be looking at her run the last day and saying, oh, look, she's nearly finished last here. She's got no chance coming into this. But that was heavy ground. It was no good for her. So yeah, I don't know. You don't sound so keen on the Euros. Sounds like you like the Americans here, Tom.
Yeah, I think both Peaceful and Terabellum will go better than they did last time. Peaceful, incidentally, is 9.0. I take the point about John Gosden's form. We don't really ever think about John Gosden being out of form. He's ever so consistent, but he really has had a bit of a dearth of it recently. But look, this is going to be a different kettle of fish, and Terabellum will have been out there for a little while. But I'm a big fan of both Chad Brown's fillies. Rushing Fall just seems a different, a better filly this year. I don't know if you guys can shed a bit of light on that. And the only other question I wanted to ask about Rushing Fall was, is there a chance that this extra half a furlong, which is what I would call it, is that just a little bit beyond her best? Does it stretch her ever so slightly?
I think so. That's why I chucked her out of here. She's a horse for course if there ever was one. She's about as gutty a performer as you'll ever come across. She loves Keeneland, but I was really concerned with the distance for her. And so I looked to the fillies that really wanted to go this particular route of ground when I picked horses.
Which is why if I had to have a go in here, I'd probably go for Chad's other filly, Sister Charlie, who's 10.0 on the Matchbook Exchange. So you're talking 3 times bigger price than Rushing Fall. So that for me, just based upon the distance, because again, with my limited knowledge, it just seems going on her form. And I did better in the race last year at Santa Anita when she was beaten by Iridessa back in third. But it seems to me that this is more her distance than it is Rushing Fall. Is that fair, Pete?
That's definitely fair. Rushing Fall, I agree in principle. I would think this might be a hair beyond where she's at her best. However, I also felt that way about Bricks and Mortar last year. We saw how that turned out. Chad Brown, one of these trainers who never seems to make the wrong call when it comes to these things. They could have run her in the mile. He chose to run her here. I respect Rushing Fall, but I think Mean Mary might have the edge over her going a little bit farther here. Well, I get a thumbs up from my friend over there in California.
Unity at last, hallelujah!
Yeah. See, it can be done. I think that when you look at pace figures, you don't necessarily see Mean Mary in front, but I'm pretty sure that's her chance of winning here. I know the Motion Barn has been very confident about how forward she's been training. He's obviously had an incredible rate of success in this race. I actually made Terabellum my top pick, not least because I might have been looking at that 20-1 on the morning line, which I doubt will become a reality. But I for all the reasons Declan was talking about, I think she'll just be better suited to this test. But of those two, I don't think there's a lot separating them. But Mean Mary will definitely be one I want to keep on side in this year's Filly and Mare Turf.
I mean, quoting a Terabellum price at you of 11.0, does that interest you, Pete, or would you be looking for bigger? You'd be happy with that?
I'd still accept it. I mean, I think when we're making our picks, sometimes it's hard not to be influenced by the price you're seeing there in the morning line. Even knowing, I'm sort of hoping against hope that Terabellum will get a little bit lost in the tote market. There are opportunities to do some arbitrage occasionally between the exchanges and the tote prices. Now, with the names Gosden and Dottori, I don't know there's going to be that much of a rick between the prices, but it's something I'm definitely paying attention to because there are a lot of different ways to go in this race.
Michelle, doesn't sound like you're too keen on rushing Fool. Who are you looking at?
Good job, Pete. I like Mean Mary. I like Parabellum. The only horse he didn't mention that I like is Civil Union. She's bringing in 4 in a row for Shig McGahee and Joel Rosario. I think she has the right running style. She can lay just close enough that she gets first jump on a lot of these and can inhale anybody in the front end that might be getting a little bit too leg weary with the added distance. The one caveat to her is last time out, she did beat my sister Nat, but that was the tale of 2 trips that day. If you go back and watch the race, Civil Union had an absolutely beautiful, clear run, and my sister Nat did not, and it cost her the victory. I don't necessarily know if if both trips had been the same, if Civil Union couldn't have fought it off, but at a big price on the morning line, I thought she was absolutely worth a play. She's just doing too good, and she gets Joel Rosario, who's one of the strongest finishers in the game, so I have to like her as well.
So for my tentative selection, Sister Charlie, what happened to the Sister Charlie that won at Belmont and went off favourite for this race last year? Is she just not as good this year?
Honestly, she's coming into the race similar, right?
Yeah. Is she, but just looking at the prices,
she's
go on,
old.
Rixie.
Sorry, I was going to say, isn't Sister Charlie maybe one horse who probably prefer the firm of Keeneland rather than the firm of Santa Anita? She to me looks like a horse who could probably go on kind of yielding good to soft Euro ground, never mind what you guys get in the States.
Do you know what Sister Charlie needs is her very own rabbit, which she used to have all the time. While we think there's going to be some pace in here, a front runner like Mucho Unusual, who's just a galloper, right, is not the same as having a dedicated rabbit. And she doesn't have a dedicated rabbit like she used to.
But to your point, Declan, the pedigree angle here, I mean, first of all, it's wild to have the sisters both in the championship race with my sister Nat, Sister Charlie, and then, of course, they're kin to Satsas, and we've seen what he can run over. So I think there is probably – I think she can probably run over anything, but there's certainly no issue with cutting the ground.
Let's kick on to the race which I felt on our WhatsApp conversations that Michelle was most excited about. So I can't really bang up race, I think you said. Now,
bang up race.
But the great
scratch of Vekoma.
And that's such a shame that he's out, right? I before this jokingly said it was because he got a fever when he found out where he was drawn, but it is genuine. And obviously those wide it's going to be a negative, but it would have been great were he there. Are you looking at the top of the market, Michelle, for this contest?
Let me tell you what about Vekoma, right? There was 2 ways to look at it. A, he was a legitimate contender, and B, you can try and beat him because he was going to get hammered. And if you didn't like him, there was going to be some really good opportunity here. So that was why I thought this race was excellent, because there was just good horse upon good horse upon good horse. With him scratching, I feel like now the horse that I really liked is going to take a lot of play, and that's the 10 Yapon for Steve Asmussen, who's a perfect 4-for-4. In his life, he's just a 3-year-old against older horses, and Steve has been kind of inkling him up to some of the best competition. Let's be honest, the horses he's been beating are suspect at best. They are not good, right? But he's doing it the right way. The key is early on in this race, Joel needs to ride him. He's not a typical, I'm going to go guns a-blazing sprinter. He's a horse that is a little lazy, it looks like, and he needs ridden along. So if you see Joel going like this early on in the race, don't be worried. When that horse turns for home, he finds his own gear late.
Going like what? That's Yapon, who is actually 3.25. So, I mean, look, he's warm enough towards the top of the betting. Then you've got CZ Rocket, who's 5.5, then into the slightly bigger prices.
I would have beat CZ Rocket. I'm not even using him in my top 4.
Really?
Yeah. What about you? Thumbs down?
I like Well, I'll say this, though. You know a lot more about these California horses than I do, getting to see them all the time. But I was interested in CZ Rocket just based on the form he's shown recently. What's the case? And I certainly get Yapon. I'm very boring in here. It's going to be centering action around those 2. But what's the case against CZ Rocket? Everything I'm seeing on the page makes him seem legit, and historically the West Coast sprinters do very well shipping east in the Breeders' Cup and just in the USA in general. So what am I missing with him?
the fast West Coast sprinters. He's not like a go to the lead guy. He's a grinder, right? He's like, I'm coming. He barely got up to beat Flagstaff. If Flagstaff was in there, he'd be 20-30-1. And that's back-to-back times he's beaten him. The third place finisher in the Pat O'Brien law-abiding citizen, he's like an allowance type horse. He's definitely not, grade 1 caliber. I just feel like all the horses he's beaten, with the exception of maybe Shisha Shake Me Up, has been at best. I really was a huge fan of Collusion Illusion, and to be fair, he did beat him last time out. I don't think Collusion Illusion fired in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. I think that he can run a rebound race off of that effort where he was well beaten by CZ Rocket, and I've got nothing against him. I just think that there's other horses in here that are faster up front, or that their turn of foot is a little bit better. I mean, honestly, I prefer Frank's Rocket over CZ Rocket.
Pete, you want to come back on that?
I mean, the form case about a lot of these California horses is completely right. I mean, there's been some very suspect graded stakes out there. I'm still interested in the horse.
Whoa, how about some of your New York graded stakes?
It wasn't a personal slight at you, Michelle.
It kind of was.
They were friends for a race.
I mean, you took that form apart. We're not going to talk about the juvenile fillies because that will have happened by the time most people are looking to this. But I'm convinced Princess Nora isn't fast enough to win a maiden at Saratoga. So that's where I'm coming from with that idea. Look, let's talk about an interesting horse that might be able to make some people money, at least in an each way scenario. And
let's
that's
see if it's thumbs up or thumbs down.
Hog Creek Hustle. Hog Creek Hustle had a huge number to come running. I mean, we've seen this horse do this act before. I'm assuming you're going to see, 40 or higher on the exchanges for this one. Yeah, and while all these horses are battling up on the front end, this one's just going to be gearing up. Not sure if he's fast enough to go there and get the win, but I wouldn't rule it out. And for one to get somewhere up into the number, just one that folks might want to think about keeping on side.
Be the sort of horse, Pete, who on the matchbook exchanges, you'd be looking at, I think, 70 plus on the day, just because he's not going to command it. There's a shorty towards the top, and that's in the win market. And then in the place betting, you know what percentage you're going to be getting. So well worth playing. You can just play in the place market if you wanted to, or you could have a smaller win and a bigger place if you wanted to take advantage of that. But you're both pretty keen on Yupon at the moment, right? You couldn't put anyone off Yupon at the top.
Most likely winner, I think.
Okay.
Can I say this real quick? If you're talking about big price horses, if you like Diamond Oops for some reason and you're thinking Empire of Gold has no shot, go back and watch the Phoenix. As they were coming down to the wire, the jock started to hit and right-handed, and he swapped back to his left lead where he was already really tired, and he lagged, and that let Diamond Oops get to him. He quickly switched, the rider did, and got him back on his right lead, and he tried to re-rally. I think that cost him the race. So if this horse is like huge odds and you kind of liked him or you like Diamond Oops, don't ignore him because that race, really, he could have won if he had stayed on his right lead.
Diamond Oops is around about the 9.0 mark, 9.0 mark. So again,
he's getting some play.
Yeah, exactly. He's seeing
it. Empire of Gold. What was he at? What's he at? Because he's 30-1 on our morning.
Empire of Gold is again sort of similar sort of feel to Hog Creek Hustle. 51.0, that sort of thing, and you might be able to price up on the day. Exactly. Right, let's kick on. I cannot wait for this race. The Breeders' Cup Mile, the 2-turn mile on the turf for these Euro horses. They're going to be like, what? We're going round again. This doesn't make any sense. Kamiko, Declan, discuss 5.0, top of the betting. He has been shorter, actually, just easing out a touch to a more backable price. I think he's still not for me. Where are you with Kamiko around this Keeneland mile on the turf?
Yeah, look, I couldn't put anyone off Kamiko. I don't think he's a 2000 Guineas winner. He's a classic winner, and I don't think we have seen the best of him this year because connections have basically chased the Derby dream. You can't blame them for that. The Derby is, in whatever country you are, it's a great race, but I think it definitely kind of halted his progress over a mile because he's what we know now about this horse. Fundamentally he is a quick horse. I don't see that the fast ground being any worry to him. I think he's probably he's not a big, massive horse. You know, he's quite strong, built like a sprinter, maybe behind, so I can see him handling the course fine. And look, I think he's good enough. I think, you know, I have him rated 120 plus, and he comes here on the back of a career best. I know some people are worried about just about the long season, but we started late here in the UK this year. The Guineas was in June, and every time he comes out of a race, Andrew Balding says he's back into his grub, eating up, and he's training as well. So look, I couldn't put anyone off Kamiko. I think he's got a good chance, definitely. I think the Euro horses are pretty strong here, to be honest. I can't remember the last time we had so many horses who I think would be suited by the test that's going to be presented to themselves. I think Kamiko will be fine given the speed and the track. Siskin will definitely be fine given the speed and the track. But the problem with him is 2 out of the 3 times he's travelled away from Ireland, he has he's been below himself. He's obviously he pulled himself over before the Dewhurst a couple of seasons ago as a 2-year-old in the stalls. Then he went to Goodwood and he ran a perfectly good race. But then last time out he went to France and he played up before the race. So I think if you're betting Siskin, I think his pre-race demeanour is gonna be pretty important. But look, Ger Lyons is a good trainer. He's a shrewd guy. By the sounds of it, they're going to have their own guys down there looking after him. And I think the stalls in America are much bigger as well, aren't they, compared to the European stalls? So that's probably going to be a plus as well for him. And then you've got Lupe Y. Fernandez, who I think you can't say he's overpriced on form because his last 2 runs have been pretty poor. But if you go back to his French runs earlier on in the year, I think this guy is a massive player at 20-1 plus here in the UK. I think I might have saw he was even 30-1 on the morning line in the States, which is absolutely colossal. But what price is he, guys, with the Matchbook Exchange, Tom?
21.0 again.
20, yeah. Like
It's a good price.
Look, it is a good price. You can't make the case and say he's coming in here red hot. But then again, if he was coming in here red hot, he'd probably be 8-1, 9-1. This guy is all speed. People I think keep saying he wants soft ground because he's by Lope de Vega. But all this horse's best runs have come on firm European turf. So if you want one at a big price, this is probably my best value play of the whole Breeders' Cup is Lupe Y. Fernandez. I'm very surprised Moore isn't riding him over Circus Maximus. Circus Maximus has looked gone at the game the last twice. In the early part of the race, he's done his usual thing. He's jumped well and he's got into a decent position. But just in the last third of his last 2 races, he's looked completely lifeless. So I'm surprised Moore is riding him. But we've got Lanfranco at a Tory, so you know that's very much an able deputy.
Yeah, he'll do, wouldn't he? I think Ryan Moore was always in a way going to ride a proven Group 1 performer in Circus Maximus over what's definitely his best trip. Just coming back to Siskin, if a Group 1 winner as a juvenile over 6 furlongs, stepping up into his 3-year-old season, having won the Irish Guineas in the way he did it with that turn of foot, all season I thought, I hope he goes to the Breeders' Cup. Perfect. I hope he goes to the Breeders' Cup. And then I heard Ger Lyons talking on Nick Luck Daily, the Lucky's Daily podcast, about how he didn't really want to come here. He wanted to bring him here as a 4-year-old, but his hand is being forced because he's going to be retired to stud. And so this is the only chance they're going to get of coming here. And it really just put me off. And it sort of played into what you were saying about the horse, how I just don't think Ger really is desperate to travel him, given where he is mentally. And that's really put me off him. So he probably was going to be the horse I wanted to side with, but I'm trying to now put people off just based on those comments personally. Pete, go on. What do you think?
I'm with Declan. I already have a bet on Lope Fernandez, and I'm very excited to see that one run. I agree with that general idea that the Europeans, I get the thumbs up from Declan. That's good. I don't think Declan's given me a thumbs up since we were hanging out at Ascot at the Car Park 2 a couple of years ago. So I'll take it. What
happens in Car Park 2 stays in Car Park 2.
Michelle, that's your scene. I've never seen so much champagne consumed. You got to come when the world gets back to normal. We got to come over and all hang out over there.
The best thing was the first time I
Michelle
ordered a glass of champagne at Royal Ascot.
Lose her mind out there.
I've been. We've hung out at the car parks and we came inside and I was like, ooh, a glass of champagne is like 46 euro. That is too much. And I ordered a glass anyways. And then they handed me a bag with a whole bottle. I was like, oh, this is my life right now. I just walked around with my ice bag of champagne.
That's fantastic. The general idea that the Euros are where it's at in this race is one I can get behind. Kamiko, for me, I mean, what a gorgeous horse. And not huge, but I don't know. I'm struck by the idea that he's more of a galloping type who I just don't know how the two turns is going to suit him. I saw Andrew Balding around there yesterday, and I just asked point blank, and he gave the kind of response that was, he wasn't pessimistic, he wasn't optimistic. It was like well, we're going to find out. So we'll see. With so many at longer prices, I'm gonna spin them at least in terms of what I'd be doing on the matchbook exchange. Wouldn't be laying them or anything. But Siskin, one good point about Siskin is that's where that contender cam that they're going to have over at breederscup.com could come in really handy to be able to clap your eyes on him every second from when he gets into the parade ring to when he gets out to the stalls. He's certainly a horse I want to be taking a look at. And Safe Voyage, a horse with all that left-handed form. I was honestly expecting a bit bigger of a price than we're seeing. Let's see what happens on the day, though. He's one where if he drifts up to a high enough number, I would be potentially interested in taking a look. I'm kind of all Europe in here.
Safe Voyage, who isn't racing on Lasix, and I think he had a slight niggle earlier on in the week when he got there. I think I saw that somewhere. So, but again, if he eases out to a backable price, there you go. Michelle, what about the home team? Are you home team, or are you very much the Europeans for this?
Well, I liked Kamiko, but then you guys are all talking me off of him right now. So I do have a home team horse. I like the 5 Digital Age for Chad Brown. He brings in back-to-back wins, including a grade 1 last time out in the Turf Classic, but going a lot farther. Obviously, Chad Brown had the opportunity to run him farther. He opts to put him in this spot. If you go way back in his form, he is a 2-time winner at the mile. I like a horse in cut back in distance. I think he's really interesting. Unfortunately, he has a come from behind type running style. I don't know if he can outkick a lot of the Europeans in here, but I like that Castellano's going to be on. He rode him last time. He outgamed Factor This, and I don't love Factor This at the mile at all, and I think a lot of people are going to back him because of who his trainer is. But for me, I think Digital Age, he looked so good last time, and I backed him in that race. I have to keep my money. I have to kind of parlay it into this, so I'm going to go with Digital Age in the Turf mile here.
Okay, I'm quite simply, I'm going to lay Kamiko a place. I am just going to stick to my guns that it's not going to suit him. His best performance came on the straight mile at Newmarket. When he hit that rising ground, he absolutely took off, and they went a fierce pace in that. And he's for me, he's probably going to be best as I thought a 9-10 furlong horse, and I can't see this 2-turn mile suiting him at all. But I don't want to lay him at 5.0, but I'll lay him for a place and see how I get on. We've got to move on. We've got 3 races to go. We move on to the Breeders' Cup Distaff on the dirt. All very much Team USA for this contest. Pete, take it away.
One of the great storylines of the whole meeting in here with Monomoy Girl, who looks bigger and more powerful than ever. She's trying to regain her crown after life-threatening illness that kept her out of action last year. The kind of horse you could make a movie about, and I think she'll go very well. But at prices that have been available and might continue to be available from a strict gambling point of view. Let's see if I get the thumbs up or thumbs down from Michelle with this one. I'm kind of interested in CC in this spot. It's the same trainer, same post, similar argument in many ways to what we talked about when we talked about Speech before. I just feel like there's a story to be told going through CC's past performances. Sprinting last time, too close to the pace. I don't think she liked those California racetracks in the previous 2. Back in April in the Apple Blossom, a race that was excellent form with Oaklawn basically the only game in town back then, she looked like a top contender for this race. She was available at 33-1 a week ago. That was way too big each way. I don't know how much that's going to be correcting in, but she's one to keep in mind, though nothing against Monomoy Girl. And as a racing fan, I cheer more for my fan opinions than my gambling ones. And I think I might be cheering the loudest of the whole 2 days for Monomoy Girl in here, whether or not it's going to make me any money.
Emperor, thumbs up or down?
Thumbs in the middle. Thumbs in the middle.
Thumbs in the middle. Mike McCarthy did tell me that he has excuses for those last 3. You were right, spot on. She didn't let the track at Del Mar or Santa Anita. And he said he made a mistake running her in the Derby City Distaff. He thought she'd be able to stalk easily. And with Serengeti Epperson there, it just wasn't the case. So you can draw a line through those last 3 efforts for her. I mean, I want to see Monomoy Girl win this race, right? She's just the Cinderella story. She's just little tiny, inexpensive filly, and she has just won pretty much everything they've thrown at her. If you watch her train right now, if a mouse farted, she would be gone. I mean, if there's one horse this whole weekend I do not want to ride, it is Monomoy Girl, because she is so on tilt. It's like not even funny. She is such a game racehorse, but I appreciate her because even if she's feeling that good and really wants to take advantage of you, she's like, okay, I'm still good. I'm going to hang out right here. I love her draw for this. She's just a gamer. It's going to be tough to beat her. I think the only way they're going to be able to beat her, no shit, is if Swiss Skydiver does the same race that she did in the Preakness. So if she lets go and goes out there in the front and Monomoy Girl has to catch her at some point, that's the only way I feel like anyone's going to beat Monomoy Girl in here.
I'm trying to imagine what a mouse fart sounds like, but I've never heard it.
Finally, someone who's lowered the tone more than me on the match. Finally, let's have Michelle on every week.
I stole that line from Brett Calhoun, who was talking about his, I think it was By My Standards earlier on during the beginning of the pandemic. We had him on and he was like, this horse is so on tilt. If a mouse farted, he would be gone. I'm like, I've got to use that one day. And this is my first chance. So I'm so excited.
CC, incidentally, 26.0 is surely Swiss Skydiver has to be ridden as forward as possible to make this as much of an attritional test as possible, because what wasn't Kenny McPeak umming and ahhing about whether he went up to the classic distance or came back to this? Was it a tight call, do you think?
I think it probably got easier when Midnight Bisou was retired. That this is what do they always say, Michelle, about not wanting to be afraid of one horse, and in the classic you'd have several more. So I think that decision might have been a little bit made for him. But I do think I think they might ride that way, and that is part of the CC case. I think CC will get like a total hold-up ride this time after being too close at the sprint the last day. Not out of touch in front of the deeper closers. And I do think those two are going to tussle. I respect the hell out of Swiss Skydiver, but I think she's just a little flattered by the race the last day, because I think she was on the right part of that track. I don't think Authentic got the right kind of ride. I think if Authentic had just gone on with it and gotten to the good rail at Pimlico that day, we'd be talking about him as a dual classic winner. So anyway, I just think she's a little bit flattered, and I think Monomoy Girl is so tough and isn't going to lose that fight. And that's my 2 cents.
Pete, what about the unluckiest filly of the year? Poor old Ollie's Candy.
I know that was such a big race. The race we were talking about before, back in the Apple Blossom. She's not. I mean, I would listen to a case for. I feel sort of locked into my view here, and I just don't know how this is going to set up for her. But on talent and form and figures, she's not far out of it too.
Can I say I kind of wish someone else was riding her, because I feel like her best races are on the lead. Like, she doesn't want to let another horse by her. She's in the races here and she's coming a little late and she's getting there and she's like trying to fight. But if she was on the front, I think she would dig in. I would have loved to see a little bit more of a send rider. I think Joel's just he's like, I'm a good closer. I'll just have her right here nice and easy and we'll just close. I think if you got someone on there that was like, out of the gate, that would be a complete form turnaround for her. And you don't need much. I mean, she's 0 for 5 this year, but she's only hit the board.
Michelle, did you have an on-top selection for the race?
My top selection is Monomoy Girl.
It is Monomoy Girl. Perfect. Okay, so 2.5 for Monomoy Girl. Heart and head saying Monomoy Girl for you. Let's move on to the turf. Penultimate contest, Breeders' Cup Turf. Again, very much team Euro, and some lovely fillies in here as well. Rixie, magical, yes or no?
Oh, I don't think it's that easy, is it? I think obviously she's got an outstanding chance. She's better than ever this year. She in the Irish Champion Stakes, she obviously beat the highest rated horse in the world in Gayaf. Yeah, and look, last time I've always felt with her that quick ground is what she wants. She just seems to do everything easy. She travels better. She picks up easier. She runs straighter. So last time out when she was running at Ascot in the Champion Stakes on soft ground, I was really worried about the ground. I don't think Ryan Moore gave her the best ride, to be honest. He was too passive on her. He should have given her a squeeze. Quite early in the race, put her, this filly's got form over 12 furlongs, so, she's going to stay. So, I just don't think Ryan was seen to best effect the last day. I think this time he's got no choice. He's got to go forward and put her in first or second. She's so straightforward, this filly. She'll do anything you want, and we know she's tough. And obviously, when we're talking 12 furlongs, talking American horses, in general, they're not really bred for this kind of game, They're more speed orientated over there. The more of a war of attrition this turns into, the more it's going to suit the Euro horses, I think. I like Magic Queen offer, but I really do. She's been so good this season. She's only had 3 starts. The day she won at Cork, she was absolutely friendly in the betting, and she still won very well. That form now looks pretty good. Done in France in her last 2 starts in Vermont and Prix de l'Opera were pretty sensational.
Rixie,
let me just so much what she's got an outstanding chance, to be honest.
Let me pause you there. We just lost you midsection. That's Tanawa you're talking about, right? Definitely Tanawa if he's talking about Cork and only had 3 starts this year. So she's 4.5. We'll get him back.
He has to leave because he just said Magical was going to be on the front end. What is he eating for breakfast today? Are you eating your crack Wheaties? There's no shot she's on the lead.
I'm back. I'm sorry. I think my internet's been on the crack Wheaties, to be honest.
Just pick up on what Michelle said. So where's Magical going to be in the race, do you think, Rixie?
I think, Brian, look, there's a couple of US pace horses in here, but I don't think it's going to be a strong run race. I think he's got to sit or second or third.
Wait, now you're backtracking because you said be on the lead.
Well, be on the pace. Yeah, kind of. Maybe that's a Euro term. It sounds a little bit different compared to you guys. But she has made. I think she has made the run in plenty of times. I would have absolutely no issue with Ryan Moore going to the lead. But what he can do here is sit in mid-div.
You're making me think back to Highland Reel and Found. Now, Highland Reel was a front runner who had real speed. But, Coolmore they're not opposed to using team tactics, and it would probably greatly increase their chance of victory if Magical were to be ridden, not in front of Channelmaker, but up near there. So it's an interesting notion. I don't think she's fast enough to get in front of that horse the way that he's been campaigned this year. But the idea of her being the first one to attack and to make sure that either she goes on with it, and it just puts the other riders, I think back to Castellano that year aboard Flincher and the dilemma he was presented with. Do I go after Highland Reel and set it up for Found, or do I sit back here and let Highland Reel go on with it? It's an interesting notion. I think in either scenario, Declan, it feels like Tarnawa is going to get the right kind of run to me.
Yeah, I don't know if did you guys see the breaking news today? But it looks like Christophe Soumillon has tested positive for coronavirus, so he's not riding now. Which I think I've got to be honest. I think it's probably a negative for her chance. Sounds like Colin Keane is going to get the ride. This is a colossal opportunity for Colin Keane. Multiple Irish champion jockey, but he just doesn't have the international experience of the likes of Isumian or what. This really could be the biggest ride of Colin Keane's career now. So it's going to be interesting to see how he goes. I
think that's something big you pick up on. Other than Ryan Moore and Frankie Dettori, you don't get many Euro riders riding Breeders' Cup winners. It's so tough, particularly on if you've only been out there once or never been out there at all. It's so tough to do it riding a different type of track like that. We're short on time. Pete, who do you like in the race?
I'm going with Tarnawa. I think it's could be an Irish 1, 2, 3. I will back Tarnawa to win, and I will play forecasts with Mogul and Magical over her. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Michelle in the turf.
Magical over Chanarwa over your pace setter, United. I don't think Channel Maker is going to be on the lead. I'm not guaranteeing it's going to be United, but I think that it's not going to be Channel Maker. He's a loafer.
Magical's going to be my best bet, so I'll make the case in that. Pete and Declan, you need to get a room. It's just unbelievable. Let's kick on to the classic, the Breeders' Cup Classic. Oh, I wanted to make a case for my American friends and be like, right, I've got one I really fancy in here. I haven't got a clue. It's such a difficult classic. They're all beating each other. I love 'Tis the Law. What happened last time? I watched the race 100 times and I can't work it out. So explain it for me, Pete. Why didn't 'Tis the Law go past?
There's a few different excuses I could come up with. I think the sort of publicly stated one is he's not at his best at Churchill. I thought that it's a minor incident, but it might have been enough to get him keyed up into the first turn. Maybe took a little bit of the sting out of his finish, or maybe just he reacted to the seemingly effortless run in the Travers. But we saw, it wouldn't surprise me at all that when a horse runs as well and fast as he did in the Travers, that you'd back up coming back in a month. Whichever, pick the one of those three of your excuses.
You forgot he just wasn't as good.
I'm not accepting that one, but I still think because of post and pace, Authentic has every chance to, Authentic's more interesting gamble at the current odds, because I hate the post for Tiz. He's not a horse who's shown the ability really to run well inside of horses. Mm-hmm. Manny Franco spent whole races earlier in his career trying to get him off of rails. And Authentic's going to probably be able to clear from the outside. Baffert's not going to, he's not going to have two of his out there. He's not going to make that mistake again, like what happened in the Preakness. Authentic's just going to go and get in a perfect spot. I think, though, it sets up beautifully for Tom's d'Etat. He's the horse I really want in here. The fanboy in me will be rooting for 'Tis the Law. But Tom's d'Etat, here's one thing about Tom's d'Etat vis-a-vis Matchbook specifically. I don't know about you, Michelle, but like basically every analyst I've spoken to is picking Tom's d'Etat. And I wonder if the price on the day isn't going to be much more like 4-1 or 7-2 than the 6s and 7s I'm seeing over there in Europe. So he might be one to just jump on now, and you could arb it off, or you could keep it as a bet. I think he's going to get a good trip in behind there. I think he's been trained to the minute by a trainer who's had success with older horses who need to be kept together, training them to the minute and bringing them for a huge effort on Breeders' Cup Day. I one regret, I haven't seen him in the flesh myself this week, but all the reports I'm hearing about Tom's d'Etat are to the positive. I think he's the one you want at the odds, and Authentic I think is very interesting at 6 or 7-1 as well.
Yeah, Authentic 7.0, Tom's d'Etat point bigger currently 8.0.
Whoa!
Are you liking that?
Immediately, right
really?
Now.
Yeah.
Stop watching this. Go away. Go get that.
Keep talking.
That horse is definitely not going to be anywhere near that price stateside, for like Pete said, for sure.
But this is the point, right? Compared to the morning line prices, or over here, you just get slightly different prices, and it works both ways with the Euros and the Americans compared to what you're expecting. So Tom's d'Etat at the Matchbook price currently, you are speaking very positively about. Michelle, of those right at the top of the betting, Improbable, 'Tis the Law, Maximum Security. Are you looking at one of those?
Every time I've done one of these, I just pick a different horse, and one day
that says it all.
Supposed to do that.
This race is so, you know what
There's
it is?
a word for that.
It's literally like every time I watch them, a different horse impresses me. So going in before they left for Keeneland, Maximum Security looked so good in his final work. Like Bob Baffert is just finally getting him into like the Bob Baffert program. And he looked so much more interested than he normally does, because he's a really lackadaisical workhorse. He's hard to like convince that he needs to do a job in the morning. And he looked tremendous in his last work here. But obviously, Improbable's last race, he looked great, but he needs to be in the clear, right? That's the key. And he has a lot of gait issues. Even though we haven't seen it lately, he can still be naughty and completely lose the race right there. To me, Authentic is the most professional. And watching him at Keeneland, of all of the Bob Bafferts, from the second he walked off the van to watching him gallop, all of a sudden he has leapfrogged right to the top. And I'll be fair, I want Authentic to do as good as possible, because early on in the year when Baffert had Charlatan, Nadal, and Authentic, I have been an Authentic fan on top the entire time. So for him to win the Breeders' Cup Classic would just be like sweet redemption for me. Really saying like, see, I told you guys, it wasn't just because there was no other good horses around. So it does unfortunately like fluctuate as I'm watching them. This is literally going to be like a post-time decision, but I do feel like the Classic runs through Bob Baffert.
I hear that, but from what we're all saying, it sounds like if you can get Tom's d'Etat on the Matchbook Exchange at 6.0 or bigger, then that is worth taking. There we go. I like that.
There's nothing wrong with him. You draw a huge line through his last race. He likes to be forwardly placed. He fell on his face out of the gate and was just way behind. And Al Stahl immediately said, "We're going to do this." It's not like he's missed races that he was supposed to go to. This has been the plan all along, because this horse runs really well fresh.
I love it. I didn't expect it to come down with Tom's d'Etat, and here I am thinking I'm going to log in and take it right now. That would be naughty. I'll wait till this goes out. Best bets, as we are on post time for Pete to have to go. Best bets, people. For
is best bet most likely winner, or is it biggest price?
It is. You can own. Your best bet
both.
is. Yeah, go on. I like that. Look
best
at that,
bet
Rix.
and best value bet.
Okay, Rixie, you can kick us off then. Who's your best bet, first of all?
My best bet would actually be Tarnawa without Magical. I think that's a great bet. That's my absolute nap. And then the value bet, without a doubt, for me is Lupe Y. Fernandez in the mile.
Pete?
I'm going to go, let's see. All right, for the likely winner, I'm gonna go head to head with Michelle and go back to Nick's Go in the dirt mile. And then when you're putting value in the mix, I can't double up with Declan, though. That is very tempting to do there. So I'm gonna leave those two races, and I'm gonna go back to Tom's d'Etat. I mean, I think we're talking value. That's value.
I'll go next because I can see Michelle's looking. My best bet is definitely Magical. If you can get 3.755, 4.0, she'll sit just off the speed, and this is the ground she wants. She's only had 5 goes at a mile and a half, and she's well worth another one. So love Magical. And for a value bet, I'm going to stick to my guns and my US knowledge with Sister Charlie. Sister Charlie at around about 10.0. I'm going to go with her. Michelle?
I like Magical as a best bet. Since you took it already, though, I'll just take Monomoy Girl, because everyone's going to be cheering for her regardless. And so for my price play, so we can go head to head, Pete, I'm going to go War of Will because he's 10-1.
Nice. I love it.
I love that. The needle didn't stop from start to finish. We did it, guys.
Woo!
If the prices were closer, I feel like I'd be taking advantage of you to offer you a champagne bottle head to head. And unlike Kinchin, I pay my debts.
I know, he's so cheap. He still owes me a bottle of champagne.
Rixie, thank you very much, sir. Top man, as ever.
Cheers, guys. Thank you. Best of luck. Enjoy Friday and Saturday. I'm sure it's going to be a great 2 days.
Pete, go and hunt down Tom's d'Etat and send us some live shots, please. Some updated shots. Michelle, you'll forever be a hero for getting up at about 4 a.m. and your kids were brilliant. So thank you very much. That is it for the Matchbook Betting Podcast, the Breeders' Cup special, Saturday special. Let us know your thoughts if you want to interact with us on all the social platforms. Hope you've enjoyed watching or listening wherever you have done so. Happy betting this Saturday. Bye for now.